You've got your head down, pen to paper, and this test is going balls to the wall. Time's up. You're still writing, of course, until the invigilator Tani spots you from across the hall and threatens your expulsion. You stop. 3 weeks later, they announce, marks are out. Look, you know you bombed the test, but you're particularly curious about that one discussion question and what answers they wrote for the suggested solution. You think to yourself, goodness gracious, the nonsense words these teachers use to say memo. You look at the paper and you check the answer. First answer, oh, dang, I knew that. Second answer, oh, I was so close, I just forgot the other half of that point. No half mark. But the third answer, company culture. What the? I know. That phrase may be one of the most obscure and empty buzzwords in all of business. But I assure you, in practice, it's more than just words. Today, third-year CA trainee at VAT IT and co-founder of Apti, the tool that helps students find their dream articles, Luke Tollman is going to illuminate this elusive idea of company culture and, most importantly, explain why it is the key to the best possible 3 years of CA articles for your career. We also chat about how the APC board exam goes, TIPP versus TOPP, i.e. training in public practice versus training out of public practice articles, why you should aim to be better before you aim to be rich, why your subjects in school do not equate to success in practice, being a frog versus being a bird, and more. I hope you enjoy. My travel is on the road. This one's not going to be as fast, but it will be fast still. We should be connected on LinkedIn. If you are listening to this, you are my kind. You are kindred spirits, and therefore we should be connected on the platform for professionals and aspiring professionals. Guys, if you're not on it, I will sound like a broken record today. Get on to LinkedIn. Don't let paralysis by analysis grip you. Just get a headshot, upload your information on what experience you've had, your educational background, and start connecting with people you meet. I can be your first connection. Just make sure you have a name and a profile photo as well as a clear description of where you are and what you're doing. Like, for example, FINAC student at XYZ, right? It's really a red flag when you don't see any profile photo, you don't know who this person is, and you don't even know where they are, and then they send you a connection request. Don't expect people to accept. So just have those base things. Get started. Get yourself out there. My LinkedIn will be linked in the show notes if you'd like to connect. And also, go check out part 1 and 2 linked in the show notes if you have not already. With that, on to part 3. Apti. What is it? What do you do? And how can students use it?
Thanks. Apti is a tool for young accounting, tax, management accounting students to basically find their way on their journey to their designation. What we do in a nutshell is educate the individual on what are their options, and not in a lofty way, very specific. So Ilunga, if you had to come through and kind of do our assessments and our tests, what we would have said is you as a person are naturally inclined towards business. You love it. How can we supercharge this natural aptitude, this career ambition, and your personality through an articles program that supports that? How we then do that is basically screen through all 600 options, knowing what we know about their program and what work will actually be done there, and give you a summarized recommendation list of the 5 top firms we think you're suited to. On that, not Ilunga now go and look at the website and figure it out for yourself, try and draw inferences from your one cousin that works there. This is what it is. This is the opportunity. Here are the pros, here are the cons, which is actually more important. Here's why we think you'll grow in it, and here's what the next career steps afterwards would be. Then from that, actually facilitating your application. I realize personally how much time goes into submitting applications, writing cover letters, doing those online forms, tweaking your CV. What we actually do is build out a full digital profile with your full journey from your high school years through to your university experience, through to any relevant work experience or skills or languages you can speak, to tell a full story outside of just an A4 page, which I think so many firms get wrong in, is that they judge the book by its cover without knowing the person. And hopefully our tool actually lets you get to know that person in a lot more of a detailed way than what would have previously been possible. And then, we submit it through to the firms. If you get a bite, which we're pretty sure you will, if we've kind of flagged you as a good fit, we'll then prep you for an interview, make sure you put your best foot forward, and from there kind of coach you through the offer management / onboarding stages, while making sure you pass your degrees through partnerships that we've set up and relationships that we've got.
Can we get into company culture? Can you explain company culture? Because I think it's just a little bit of a buzzword. It's a little bit of like, oh, company culture, whatever, the values, blah, blah, blah. Because I think a lot of companies do this. They reduce their values to just words. They don't put into action. And so I think that's, in my opinion, why the whole word concept of company culture has been reduced to like nothing. But what is company culture and why is it so important?
Great question, Olunga. And I think before we even get into it, you're absolutely so right that it's so often seen as this buzzword that's not important. For me, it is the single most important factor in whether you'll be happy or not at work. And we did this interesting analysis where it's time spent per hour with different people. In your 20s, your colleagues will be the people you spend your most time with.
Sure, dang. I never thought of that. I've heard the thing of like, work is the place you spend the most time at, but your colleagues are the people you spend the most time with.
If you don't enjoy them and you think they're not great people, you wouldn't want to have a beer with them on a Friday night. You wouldn't want to have a braai or just hang out with them. If you don't like them as people, there's such a great chance that you're going to be unhappy. You deserve to be happy. And I think company culture is that. I think in the past, it's been a buzzword and it's been this intangible, mythical kind of creature that no one really knows because of the fact that there was no way to really know the culture. And I think that's what we're trying to really try hard to do, is make tangible the intangible. And I think how we're going about that is not by letting the firms tell us what their culture is, but by letting the people at those firms define the culture. And that's how our assessments work, is a sample size of the current trainees that are having a good experience define the culture of the firm at large. And we'll use that to basically infer that there's X% chance you'll be happy, or you're X% of a match to that firm. Let's take the gambling out of it. You don't need to gamble on your happiness.
And the company, before I get actually to that, why should one be happy at work? Why do you think?
I mean, like, why should one be happy anywhere? It's like, I suppose it comes back to self-love. It's like, you deserve to be happy. I think that's the other thing. It's like, I often find myself laughing. It's like, why do these guys want to go sign up to work at a place where we're pretty sure they're going to hate it? Do they not know? Do they not love themselves?
Tough.
I mean, you've punished yourself enough studying BIAC and having to survive deferred tax. Be happy during your articles. And maybe there's also just the miseducation that everyone's unhappy. I promise you everyone's not.
I think there is that misconception. Like, articles is meant to be tough.
And you're meant to hate it. And everyone does.
It. And everyone hates it. Yeah.
They don't. Not everyone does.
That's huge. And it even reminds me of this. So I saw this one little video on LinkedIn of Vusite Maguire. He's an investor, speaker, entrepreneur. And I think he was giving a sermon at church or something. And he was basically explaining to the people, like, there's this misconception that amongst poor people that, being rich it's terrible. Oh, being rich, you never want to be rich because rich people are miserable. He's like, nope, they're not miserable. I know, they're not. It's like, but rich people are fat. No, also not true. That's not true. And same goes for people in your articles. Just because you're an articles clerk doesn't mean you're suffering. Doesn't mean you're unhappy. Doesn't mean you're unfulfilled. Doesn't mean that you have to grit your teeth and just get through the thing. You can actually grow through the thing and love it and be happy, man.
Yeah. And I think it's just, we use the term investing a lot. Invest in your future. Like, it's nuts for me when I say to someone, guys, our whole process start to finish takes half an hour. And from that, you could be happier for 3 years.
Sure. 30 minutes for 3 years.
Yeah. Someone asked me, how do you sell Apti? That's the line. 30 minutes for 3 years. And if you don't kind of realize that the decision you're making right now not only is going to impact your 3 years, but what comes next. You start your career trajectory. Yes, you can pivot from a general audit experience, but how much easier is it to kind of keep stacking on the skills you're already developing, to not have a complete pivot? You might not know where you want to be long term, but at least give yourself the best chance to kind of start with your best expectation of what you want. And I think that's what we try to do.
A book that I read, I think it's life-changing. Earlier this year, is called Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. He was a consultant for governance. He was a business consultant, consulted governments, huge businesses in the US. And I think like late 90s or something. Mid 90s. 1900s. Like in the 90s or the 80s. And basically it's about how we as knowledge workers should go about approaching our career and effectively manage ourselves through our working lives. The place that we should be starting, in his opinion, and that we often miss, is that you need to answer the question, what are my strengths? So I think, especially being in an accounting program, now you've already sort of found that, I guess you're a numbers person. We now start to focus on what we're not good at. And we start to say, but your tax is bad and your thing, your auditing. So yes, you must make sure that everything is good. But when you don't answer what are your strengths, you're actually being less effective. And you're being less in the grand scheme, on a macro level, you're actually being less valuable to society. So it's actually a very societal responsibility to answer the question, what are your strengths? So that when you go into your articles, for an example, you're not going to a program that's not building you. Everything should be building you, everything should be so that you become the most valuable person you can become for everyone around you.
Yeah.
And when you're not at the right company with the right culture that matches you,
you're wasting your time.
You're wasting your time. You're wasting everyone's time.
On that topic of strengths, I think like a good question I get asked all the time from students is, Luke, my auditing mark is so bad, I shouldn't go into auditing. Fundamentally, an incorrect way of approaching it. The auditing that you'll do practically versus what you study is incomparably different. I think same thing goes for finance. I think if you don't have an unbelievable understanding of your IFRSs, that won't make you a bad financial director. If your aptitude's there and your interest in the subject's there, practically getting involved and actually understanding the business, as Nick mentioned in his kind of episode of being in the ops and then coming back to finance, that's actually what it's about. It's not so much what are your strengths on paper and from this one example. What are your strengths that have been compounding over time? Coming back to something like an audit, if you naturally incline towards the work done by an auditor, the actual theory comes together practically, which is it's been quite a big lesson, and it's actually been something so funny because so many students then come to us afterwards and go, I'm loving audit. Thank you so much. I didn't think it was actually something good for me.
Sure. That's huge, because I think on the company culture thing, we misconstrue the subject with the work. That's huge. And the company culture will tell you whether or not you will be able to grow in the work. That's the huge thing, because another I think also misconception that I had is that we're going to be, or rather, your marks are the indicator for your success. But that is not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true because finance is not theoretical. It's very practical.
Absolutely.
And so even if on this practical theoretical level you do well in the test, because I think it does simulate a little bit of what happens in work, knowing your work is important, you're still not taking into account so many other factors like how do you, that little point on like an audit, how do you obtain, evidence? Like, how do you approach messaging the client, getting the documents from the client? How do you actually do that?
Are you a professional?
Are you a professional? Do you know how to do it?
And that's the APC actually, which is so crazy. I think being in a TOPP program, there was another misconception that, APC is all about audit. Ooh. And you're going to fail your APC if you don't go into audit because of the fact that you haven't actually done all this stuff. And all the APC is about is, are you a professional? Are you a good representation of the CASA brand in the workplace? When you apply for your house loan and they see CASA, can they trust in that? And I think that's really what the APC exam is about. And I think why I find you actually might be more prepared being in TOPP just by virtue of the fact that you've written hundreds of emails and you've actually evaluated the systems within a business and you've actually been practically in it. I think the audit questions, yes, you're going to have to rely on your team to pull you through. And I think that's why it's a group kind of assignment. But there's very many times where they'll rely on you as well. And I think that was a kind of good opportunity to see that in your articles, what you're trying to do is not grow in just a skill, but you're trying to grow to become the professional.
Yeah, that's huge. And I like that APC is the day. Like, okay, dude, now you've been through some training. Are you actually a professional?
Can you handle it? Can you write an email?
How do they assess in IT, in APC?
So the tasks are pretty, it's actually, I hate to admit this, but it's actually an awesome assessment. Like, you basically get, I'm such a nerd. And it's I think for someone who loves business, it's a business assessment is the way I saw it. You get a business and you get a 20-page kind of pack on this business telling you all about it, its history, its growth options, different kind of systems in place, its financials. You really can understand where it's at. We had an airline. It was definitely like a resemblance of Lyft, which was so interesting because I think that's a brilliant business in itself. And you then have 5 days to become integral into that business. You need to be the CFO, the COO, the CEO. You need to be the bookkeeper, the salesman. That really everything is the CA. You need to kind of fundamentally understand this company. Then you go into the exam and there's about 8 questions asking you, do you understand this company across all disciplines? Taxes, financial reporting, ethics, management accounting, strategy, growth, risks, everything. And the questions are all email-based, well, predominantly email-based. Some might be like a report or a calc, but all of those reports and calcs need to be CC'd back into an email. And half of it, or 60% of it even, is how professionally do you put that answer together? You have to kind of tick the boxes of what they've asked for, and you've got to have that base level understanding. But by the time you've passed your ITC, that understanding is already there.
Yeah,
you've got it. So it's just for me, it was just dusting the cobwebs off the technical stuff, but then just approaching it of, could I work at this business? If they gave me a task to do on a Monday morning, by 10 o'clock that day, could I have it done? That's pretty much the exam. And I think if you approach it with that mindset, it's actually not a scary test. It's actually quite fun.
I think the weakness is that, as you said, like, sometimes being in a particular program, you don't focus on professional competence and professional skills. We all have the technical. At that level, we've all been through ITC. You have the technical. You did your PG to us. You did your undergrad. But like, do you have the professional skills? Are you able to articulate yourself?
Yeah. Which, like, stuff like a Toastmasters, it sounds silly. But like, Alunga, what you've got in the way you speak, such a gift, bro. Like, the way you can take this idea and romanticize it and like really like make it your own and share it with others. You've got this gift of like being able to impart knowledge in such a nice way. And I think APC will be a breeze for you. Don't study.
But first we have to get there. First we have to do ITC. First we have to do PG DAS. I think what would be really valuable is to explain TIPP versus TOPP. Because I think curse of knowledge again. We think, top, tip, like some people don't know it. So what is tip? What's top? What's the difference? And what would you say are the qualities of someone who should go in tip and the qualities of someone who should go to top? And you can just explain the nuances of that.
Brilliant, yeah. So great question as well. I think for most of your listeners, they won't even know tip versus top existed. I know for Nick and I, it was in the second half of honors that this whole concept of top arose. We just thought it was just audit, and within audit, it was just Big Four. That was it. Get Deloitte, get PwC, KPMG, EY, you're done. You gold standard.
Yeah.
I got it in first year. I didn't even think about articles. I was just like trying to survive. Tip versus top. Tip is everything you've ever known. In school, what you think of accounting, think tip. Audit, Big Four, training in public practice. Top, think they have a articles program. So stuff like your banks, your consulting agencies, your general businesses, really everything. We like to break top down into kind of 3 or maybe 4 segments. The first one being banking, investing, insurance. So think of things like Allen Gray, Sanlam, RMB, Standard Bank, really like those kind of programs. You've then got consulting, which is your Bain, McKinsey, your BCG. Yes, they have programs. They take about one person, but they do have programs. And then there's your industry and commerce, which is your typical kind of business roles. Think of things like Apple, think of things like ShopRite, Woolworths, Checkers, all of those. Apple?
What?
Yeah, I found out too late about that. I'm such an Apple fanboy. Steve Jobs is my hero. I needed to work anyway. I'm happy where I ended up. And then your last one is your more entrepreneurial program. So think of like a VAT IT. And that's kind of how we differentiate top. I think to your question of the characteristics, not that simple that I could put in a one-liner.
Yeah.
But I think take the test. We've got the articles aptitude test for that reason. It kind of says exactly what we think you scored for based on, I think it's around like 25 key traits that we've picked up, and a scaling factor for each one basically indicates where we think you're suited. Within that, obviously, there's infinite kind of options of, well, within audit, you've still got Big Four, medium, niche. You've got UK, SA. You've got, within the medium firms, are they open to advisory? Are they not? Just the other day, we were chatting about Nolan's program, and we're so blown away to see that audit trainees could get a chance to go into their advisory wing, where you'll get to do things like mergers and acquisitions and capital financing and valuations. And I'm like, at an audit firm, like that is nuts. So yeah, like I think to our whole point, there really are infinite options. I mean, 600 is nuts. And within that 600, each one is just so different from the next that, yeah, I would just say, have a go at the test. It's free.
Yeah. Oh yes. By the way, it's 30 minutes for 3 years. But I want to say 30 minutes for 0 rands. Like that's such a huge thing. Like it is literally just your time. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me. Can you just name some of those 25 characteristics just for people to get an idea of like, oh, so it's flexibility. Oh, it's my desire to work remotely. What are some of those 25 things?
Absolutely. I think before I get into that, I just like whenever I see you, Lunga, I think of this comment you made to me on a chat we had a few months ago where you go, but you guys don't tell anyone it's free.
It's like, dude, it's free, guys.
No, literally, I lie at bed at night thinking about that. I'm like, how do I to explain it's free without making it seem cheap?
It's not cheap. It's quality, guys. I went through it, but it's free.
But it's not cheap.
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured it out. So yeah, thank you for keeping me up at night.
Oh, fantastic! I'm happy about that.
Back to the qualities. I think the ones you mentioned already were like 2 kind of critical ones. It's things like, are you process versus results driven? Such a small thing, but really would make such a big impact in terms of where you're happy. If you want to be a results-driven person, don't go into this big, stuffy, stable environment where you can't actually just implement change quickly and fast and move. I would die in an environment like that, where ideas get kind of challenged 120 times before getting the chance to shine. And I think those kind of small things of like process versus results, stable versus growth, learning versus earning, open versus directive communication, just to name a few, are sliding scales. Not everyone fits the same. I think for me, I assumed the world was results driven. Doesn't work that way. People love a process.
People love a process.
They love it, and it's a step. It's a tick box.
People love to tick the box.
They love a tick box. I loved one. I thought I did. I
Yeah.
didn't. And I think now coming back to the thing of it doesn't really matter for me personally how you get there. It's about getting there, and the journey can be fun and wangle and tangle. Where I think what's so beautiful about working with Nick is he's very much like, it matters how we get there. Let's dot our I's, cross our T's. Let's tick our boxes and kind of make sure that the process from start to finish is seamless. And I think that's important in working in a business, is having that right mix, but knowing what's right for you so that you can have the role that plays into your natural strengths. I think if I had to get into a team that was a very much process orientated, kind of structured environment, I would be unhappy and I would perform poorly. And I think that's what makes us unique, is that people kind of say to us, geez, guys, where do you keep finding these superstar candidates? How do you get these incredible people? It's the same people they're interviewing. They're just putting them into the wrong roles and not letting their aptitude shine through because they're not taking the person off the paper.
Sure. Take the person off the paper. I think that's a powerful idea, because it gets back to my idea about like how words mean nothing, and we need to make an effort to make them real, which gets into the romanticizing of things. But really, just we get so caught up in the numbers. Like, if we think about our concepts, there's working capital management, there's costing and standard costing and this and that. But if you actually just go to salaries and wages, payroll, yes, it's a number, but when you really look at that number, those are the livelihoods of communities. Like, the numbers that we're dealing with are real numbers. Obviously now they're still theoretical, but when you're looking at a splotchy, when you're looking at a balance sheet, those are lives. Those are livelihoods that you're dealing with. So I think reframing it helps us take the numbers, take the paper, and see people.
Yeah. And I think let's not develop that God complex that the doctors have. I feel like this is our beef, like they are.
Yeah.
But I think big time. And I think what's been so nice about this kind of process is also seeing the not immediate stakeholders involved. I mean, not the firms we work with or the candidates we work with, but things like this, like the things that we can partner with like-minded people on a similar mission, helping similar people to just kind of join forces and collaborate as well as we can to really push the envelope forward together, which is so nice. And it's like so nice finding synergies and mutual opportunities and collaboration opportunities that, it's actually such a fun game of business.
Fun. Yeah. That's how we make business fun. Like, making business fun. Andrew Kirby, the guy who I mentioned earlier, who spoke about entrepreneurship being the ultimate self-improvement, he also said that, like, he has this idea of beautiful business, which I think is what you love. It's this idea that business doesn't have to be this forceful thing. It can all actually work for everyone. Like, everyone can win. It's not always this zero-sum situation, or, like you have to take the money from the... It doesn't have to be that. In fact, you can give students free services and we can all win.
Yeah, exactly. And I think where we came from with that literal exact concept that you just used of beautiful business and not making it like ugly. And in the recruiting game, the name of the game is round peg, square hole, it's going to fit. And I'm going to make...
Yeah, it's a funny image for me.
Yeah. I'm going to make money no matter what. And I think with us, we challenged that and we said, no, we won't put a student into the square hole that they aren't suited to. And I think that's resonated because students can tell that honesty and that genuine care about them come through from us. I think what others have got so wrong in the past is that they work with one firm and they recruit for that firm, and whether you're suited or not, it's their job to make placements there, so they're going to make it. with us, we work across the board. We win no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of, well, we only really win because we care if you go where you're happy. So that's kind of our mission, is not being that traditional recruiter that's just going to say, well, X firm needs 10 oaks. You here, you going there.
Yeah, the square and the circle. Yo, it's a funny one, man. I actually want to go back to the idea, the whole dichotomy between like your co-founder Nick and you, and the different approaches that you have that create this great synergy. And it gets back to this idea that I got from David Epstein. He wrote a book called Range: Why Generalists Thrive in a Specialist World. Right? So basically, there was this analogy that he made of frogs and birds in like a swamp. You'll have some frogs and you'll have birds there in this ecosystem. You need both for the ecosystem to thrive. So that the frogs are the ones who are down on the ground, in the mud, in the dirt, looking in the details. And, that's many accounting students. But then you also have the birds who aren't really so super detail oriented. These typically aren't people that thrive too well in like the accounting, CFO type of space, but they are so great at seeing things and connecting ideas, and they love like an overview of things, and we need both. Like we need both frogs. We need birds as well, and I think leaning into who you are is huge, which is I love what Apti's doing.
Thank you, Lunga. I appreciate
connecting people who otherwise would have felt maybe that I'm not so detail oriented. I'm bad at paying attention to. No, man, you can still get that program that fits you to that program. Or man, I'm too detailed. I don't have any entrepreneurial. There's a program for you,
and there's a path.
There's a path.
Yeah,
there's a path.
Yeah, I think with me and Nick, it's been the biggest blessing because I think he makes me better at what I am, and I think I hopefully tried to make him better in some ways. It's tough with him; he's so good at everything. But where it's been such a privilege is that we challenge each other on our weak points, but support each other on the strengths. So when Nick tells me the financials are sorted, I don't even look. It's such a breath of fresh air. I trust it. It's good. It's better than I could ever do. And I think I hopefully do the same side on parts of the business. But having that team that's rounded helps. I think what's nice as well is he'll challenge me to play into my weaknesses more and develop more. So, Luke, get in the detail. Come, help me on the ops. Get stuck in. Get your hands dirty with me. Okay, Nick, cool. Later today, I've got a call with this client. Can you join? Can you do these podcasts? Not stuff he loves, but he'll do that for me because of the fact that I'll do the ops stuff for him. And I think we've got our other co-founder, Rourke, who's completely technically inclined and brilliant at the technical stuff. So much so I don't even know what he's speaking about. But he'll explain.
That's a good sign, though, hey? That he can deal with it.
And you
can trust him.
And I trust both of them implicitly. And I think it's at business's core, they always say work with people you can trust. But also I'm realizing now, work with people that you're proud of their work. And I think like with Rourke and Nick, like I really am. Like I look at the system we've got now and the tech we've developed, as well as like our books are already prepared for next year's financials. Like our stuff is good. And I think that's because of the fact that I'm fortunate enough to work with brilliant people. Where I see businesses fail, it's because of the fact that the people aren't playing to their strengths, but also their strengths just aren't quite good enough.
But I think it's also such a privilege to, I was realizing when I forgot what I was working on, but I even wrote about it. There is no greater, in my opinion, satisfaction than producing great work, I think. Like there's nothing like producing something that you're proud of. There really is nothing like it. And even if the thing doesn't perform, even if no one likes it, it's like,
but you are.
But I did this. And you just look at it and you're like, I feel like that's it.
Yeah, the burden of ownership. I think it's tricky though, where it gets challenged.
Yeah.
And I think that the challenging part for me is realizing that triple bottom line is your scorecard.
Yeah.
And it's going, this idea that you're proud of and you love on paper, on the scorecard that is universally kind of used. How did you do? And I think what's tough at being the entrepreneur and being the creator is that you're not looking at your business, you're looking at yourself.
Oof.
And that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, there's a bias, but like it's like, I think it's a really important idea to understand that you are your work. You're actually in or at least to the world, you are your work. Your work speaks for you in a lot of ways, and so it is important to understand that if you produce bad work, you're gonna be the bad guy. You're gonna be the bad guy, and I think I just want to go back also for any entrepreneurs, any aspiring entrepreneurs. I think this is also really important idea that I've been grappling with that you mentioned about the learner versus the earner. I think like if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, I'm realizing more and more that you need to, especially at this stage, further and further away from earning and more to learning. I think similarly to you, I'm also a person who's like, I just want to give for free. I'm learning now that, you also got to take into account the sustainability of things from you as well. My brother, he also speaks about this a lot. But when we're looking at the CA journey, like, learning is so important because there's I think there's always this balance of wanting to get rich versus wanting to get better. I think at this stage of our lives, there should be nothing about being rich. It should only be about being better, because getting rich is a consequence of being valuable, of being better. So I feel like we should just focus on that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think by choosing this 7-year kind of Kickstarter, you've already committed to the learning.
You've committed to the learning.
You're on it. You're on this long road. I think where that dichotomy really comes to show is picking between a CA and between a salesperson.
Oof.
The salesperson's not committing 7 years to go kind of learn 4 distinct disciplines to learn the game of business. They'll learn the sell of what they're trying to do in the first week, and they get to the earning. I think we've committed to 7 years, but I think what you do is you're learning to earn. So just kind of stick with it is what I'd say. I think if you're a young entrepreneur kind of looking to start something and are kind of looking to get out the gate, don't be afraid to start and fail. No one knows. No one cares. Everyone's so busy with their own life. I think for me, in hindsight, there was 3 other businesses before Unlock that I don't even speak about.
Oof, my goodness, obviously. I was thinking he's definitely started other stuff, type of thing.
And I was embarrassed. I think I was embarrassed to mention that they didn't work, that I'm a multi-failure. No one knows. No one cares. Keep thinking about the fact that the business is not growing the business is growing yourself. And with that, you're going to learn to earn, and you're actually building up yourself to eventually win. You only lose when you stop. And I think as an entrepreneur, you only become one when you start. So get out the gates and just keep going. If it fails, try the next idea. I mean, ideas are free. We've got...
You've just been dropping bombs. Like, Yo.
They are though, and it's like, we've got hundreds. Come work with us.
Yeah, man. This was amazing. Okay, Luke. Yo. We went everywhere.
2 hours later.
2 hours later. If you had a crystal ball and you could go back, see into the crystal ball and talk to first year, second year, maybe even high school Luke, what would you tell him?
Jeez, that's a really good question. I don't know.
You can think about it.
Yeah. You know what the problem is, Lunga? I don't know if I'd say anything. I know that sounds unprofound, but I feel like everything so far, with luck or God's grace or whatever you'd call it, has kind of worked out just as it should have. And I think I'm worried if I told him something, maybe decided to go and do engineering, or decided to not go to Stellies, or decided to not come through to VAT IT. If so, maybe would have said something different in my interview and not been in TechX and ended up in a different thing and not had the experience I've had. I think I've been lucky enough with kind of whatever's happened to just try and find the win. And I think that's been my kind of motto is, you're in a situation, how can you win? COVID, cool, let's turn it into a business. People being unhappy, and one of my friends calling me and going, I hate my articles. How did you pick your place? I'm so severely depressed.
Sure.
How can we prevent this from happening? How can we turn it into a win? I think that would have been the message I would have said, but I think I would be so scared that life wouldn't have gone to play, rather leave the past to past.
Sure. I love that. If we could live in the past less and live in the present more, I think even the future, there's a balance of the future that we have to have.
I'm too much in the future.
Yeah.
I need to be in the present. And Nick tells me all the time, he's like,
Yeah.
bro, you're thinking in 6 months. Bro, you're thinking in a year. You're thinking in 5 years. I think the biggest thing I've learned is that don't worry about the past. It's already done. Learn from it, but don't kind of linger on it. Don't dream too much because dreams mean nothing if you don't act today. So kind of just be in the present, be in the moment, take in the opportunities when they come, make the most of conversations when they happen. And just thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate this. Okay, if we could give Ape hypothetical Luke, so I'll tell him, you don't have to tell him, it's cool. Just present. Be there. I think being there is that lesson of not wanting to meddle too much, because I think maybe even for me, I sometimes would be thinking like, I want to get there, I want to be here, I wish I was there, I wish I was here. But I think you're on track, and so
I appreciate that. Doesn't always feel like it, I must say.
you know,
Yeah, I think especially like there's kind of this imposter syndrome that comes with getting to the end of your CA journey. I think we talk about the road a lot and getting there. What happens when you get there? And I think for Nick and I, we're at the point where for the first time in 7 years, we can see it. We can like see the finish line. What next? And I think that's scary. I think your articles is like, at least there's 600 options. Next, there's infinite. And I think that's hell of a scary. And I think the point you made earlier of, well, what are you doing? How do you define yourself of, I'm an accounting student or I'm an article clerk? I guess you could say I'm a CA, but what are you doing with it? I think is where it starts to get kind of more scary, and maybe the podcast will step into that to kind of guide me on my next steps.
man, and I hope that it adds value beyond even your journey here, because the podcast is going to evolve with me as I also grow. We're going to be doing more on, serving the CA trainees, the CA, so there'll be lots, man.
Amazing.
There'll be
I
lots.
can't wait to listen.
Luke!
On a Monday morning. Guys, if you don't listen to this on a Monday morning, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's the most motivating thing. Coffee and Ilunga, it's like, geez, starts my week on the right note.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate this. Guys, if you have not already, please tell us, please follow this. This was gold. Just bomb after bomb after bomb. Value. Boom, 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 boom. Guys, please check out Apti. Remember, it's 30 minutes, 0 rands for 3 amazing years. It was absolutely worth my time. I hope it's absolutely worth yours, and I hope this was a valuable experience. Definitely, I would say part 1, in my personal opinion, if Luke's okay with that. But yeah, in the coming years, man, I can't wait to see where you grow, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
And thank you for your time. And from your kind of listeners, thank you for doing this. It's really impactful.
Thank you, bro. Guys, that was Luke Tollman on the road to CA.